I plugged those simple moving average integers into one singular outfit on the NASDAQ, and I saw all of the price action hitting every single one of those simple moving averages with to the 100th precision.
Is the entire stock market rigged? I recently traveled to Silicon Valley for an exclusive conversation with a whistleblower who has agreed to go on camera to reveal to the world that there is a hidden network of institutional insiders at major financial and wealth firms who are coordinating and manipulating the stock market using cryptographic signals. Allegedly.
So on Wednesday, there was a precision buying operation on the NASDAQ's TQQQ. And the only reason it happened is because intraday, the NASDAQ had a day's high of 60.30. That singular integer selection is what wealth firms who know how to contribute to the network knew to use for the cryptography that led to the drawdown. So as it went lower after following that flash, firms who were betting in anticipation of CPI used this specific simple moving average outfit, the TQQQ 2-minute MA 30, 60, 90, 300, 600, 900, simply for the pure fact that the day's high was exactly 60.30. So there was no complicated, nothing else to complicate it other than the fact that the integers 60 and 30 flashed in the United States stock market on the TQQQ. And they use that simple moving average outfit that uses the integers 30 and 60 to select this precision operation at the moving average 300, which was at 59.60. But the number that they bought at doesn't really matter. The matter of fact is that they bought at that simple moving average and manipulated the stock higher purely because day's high was 60.30.
And what is a simple moving average outfit? What is that, the numbers that you're looking at right there?
Simple moving averages are the most basic technical form, technical analysis, and it's literally the composite of historical price action based off of a single candle. So a single candle that you see here informs enough data to create one simple moving average.
Is that the line?
Yeah, the lines below it are simple moving averages. And these simple moving averages are, again, quite literally the most basic form of technical analysis because it's pretty much, like, plainly historical price action. It's just where the stock has traded before in relation to, like, its arithmetic.
Wait, so how is the 60-30? What's the relationship between 60-30 and what was the other number right there?
The moving average 300.
Yeah.
So the only relationship that this selection has is the fact that this is a major moving average on this simple moving average outfit operating off of the integers 60 and 30. 30, 60, 90, 300, 600, 900. So I saw this selection and I was like, oh, I've seen this before. They just flash the integer and then buy at one of the higher moving averages.
So when they flash this in, is everybody seeing that number right there?
Yeah, so this is like a massive, everyone sees this number. This is a massive purchasing program to that integer, that specific integer, that triggers the selection that is going to follow up. It's like an
so you see this, and then what are you looking for in the pattern? And you're saying, hey, it's going to be a low point somewhere. You can.
So following the volatility, going into the real-time price action, you see precision price action operating on the simple moving averages, but you can't see it after the fact. You can't see the precision moves that were happening on this blue moving average 90. You can't see only after this operation did anyone see this specific flash to the blue moving average 90 right there, and the specific drawdown exactly back down to 59.60 where insiders purchased to the exact penny. If this breaks by even a singular penny, the NASDAQ would have totally faltered and sank.
So you're saying the 60-30, that's the price, right?
Yeah, it was the price. It was like the price of the NASDAQ.
And then
professional shares.
That is tied to the SMA,
this simple selection.
30, 60, 90.
Yeah, exactly. And
so you know, hey, based on that price, it's operating on this SMA outfit.
Precisely. That's exactly the language I would
use. And is that cryptography? It just seems like they're using the same numbers, saying, oh.
That's cryptography. Yeah, that's signal communication. That's signal. That effective selection is signal generated. So whatever firms that sold there are basically telling everyone else, hey, we're working with this and we're working with.
Isn't that like an escape room where you do a puzzle and you're saying, oh, these are the two numbers that we're using, and then you go to another place and you plug those in?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So in this particular situation, the 60-30 price, where that's the high of the day, is kind of like a signal to other traders that are operating in this
in elite divisions, really.
to say, hey, by the way, we're doing this, so everybody get on board. Let's go.
That's exactly it.
So there's different ones, right? There's not just the 30, there's like 420 or some other.
So that's one of the more ridiculous ones that really just, it's unfortunate that such rampant manipulation can happen in the equity markets. Markets really are, markets and the idea of wealth and value are a reflection of our sociocultural experience as humans. So like ultimately, because we can intellectualize money, we do it. And the 421 being one that has operated the Tesla vehicle in particular is something that I get really sensitive talking about, because it really just draws the market back down to being this massive wealth transfer fraud machine.
But do you have an example of the Tesla, like the SMA thing?
Unfortunately. Oh God, here's one that operated the dollar. This was literally my first post of the entire year. Can you imagine that? The whole year of our economic state operating on the number 420. So stupid. For whatever reason, they've operated the dollar, the United States dollar, using Elon Musk's outfit, which is the integer 420.
When you say it's Elon Musk's outfit,
I mean the financial firms that back him have used the
420.
integer 420 to manipulate equities.
Okay.
Sounds ludicrous, but please stick with me, because as arbitrary and silly as that sounds, there are days where you'll see Tesla close up 6.9 and you're like, oh, okay, that's really silly. Or like falling for 42 points. And it's like, well, if you look at a chart, it's 42.00. Which is, again, like that signal generation of putting the escape room thing to another place. It's just kind of touting that, hey, we're using this. For what it's worth, the dollar had a bounce there because of traders that maximized on the 20-minute moving average 840 selection at 101.91. And as arbitrary as this number might look, all of the precision price action, which is all of these tiny little candles that are operating with the moving averages that will follow it going into the future, are hitting those moving averages in real time, and for maybe 5 minutes staying at that exact moving average until it breaks out higher or lower, whichever way the budget needs to be met, because traders are already there at 101.91.
And this is similar to the previous example that 101.9 is signaling that you're on this 420 SMA outfit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is the US dollar.
Yep.
Okay. That's not good.
No, it's not. But it's the separation of being able to intellectualize wealth like this is what creates stable economies, unfortunately.
And this creates stable economies because it can be controlled.
Yes, precisely.
So the dollar bounce back since the beginning of the year is due to it running on this SMA outfit, and then people who are in charge of what you're saying, aggressive traders, they're in charge of a lot of capital, they're all in on this particular selection as well.
Precisely.
And that's why the dollar is being driven upwards, because they're all in on it.
Specifically that, but more specifically the fact that these people who are in charge of all of this capital will never tell you that, because it's this separation of intellectualizing money that keeps the institution flowing, and those people only get access to it through handshake agreements or being specifically told to never share this information or they're out of a job.
But you're sharing it right here.
But I'm sharing it right here because I'm technically not an institutionalist. As much proximity that I have to these people because I figured this information out, I'm not someone who has handed down any of the information. So I have more liberties than anyone else.
Because you figured it out yourself.
Ultimately, yeah. That's just the reality of it. It's this precision nature of high frequency arbitrage that creates the entire economy. So when people are like, oh, it's just arbitrage, it's like, no, all of the market works on arbitrage. And that's why you don't know when the next bull market and bear market are going to be, because it requires such precise selection that only people with enough computing capacity will be able to actually effectively make money on.
Are you like an official?
I went through a whistleblower network.
Well, dude. The United States, I can tell you, dude, does not do a good job protecting whistleblowers.
Whistleblower networks also don't like people talking about whistleblowing. But again, I unfortunately am the closest person to it, and quite seriously, I don't think any institution will be able to effectively communicate this is happening. And if they did, it would be so laggard and would take such a ridiculous amount of time to fully process and get to the public that I think saying it now in real time as it's happening today is so critical, because it's our economic state and it demystifies the whole world of finance, which can be so purposefully made to be misconstrued. The reality is the major economy altering moves happen because there's a collaborative stimulant that operates it, and it's this cryptography.
Welcome to Mad Money. Welcome to Cramerica. Other people want to make friends. I'm just trying to make you some money. It is time. Some of the light round. Quote numbers. I said buy, sell, another course. Stock prices. My step first. You plan this out.
Jim Cramer, these guys are out here. That has nothing to do with the movement of stocks.
My favorite thing about the end of Jim Cramer sessions is the subscript that says, "This is not advice. This is purely media."
So what you're saying there is that it doesn't have to do with the stock market?
It's not reality. It's not based on what people at firms, wealth firms with intelligence teams are trading off of. Maybe to a certain extent, right? I mean, if you cherry pick a bunch of different things that contribute to a stock's performance, then sure. But that's not the overall reality that makes stocks move. Press is specifically part of this industry. Press releases in order to make sure that these firms can get away with manipulating equities. When there's a stock that blows up 100% and gets halted on the NASDAQ and the regulators have to say, hey, we need a reason for this to happen. We're going to halt the stock until we figure out what's going on, or until investor sentiment is actually relaxed and there is more homeostasis in the equity. And what they do is say, hey, there's a press release here, keep going. So that press is then the excuse for them to continue doing whatever they're doing to stocks. Banks and hedge funds don't just work to extract profit. That's why there are banks and hedge funds that don't even outperform the S&P 500. But the reality is these people with massive amounts of wealth just keep the oil in the machine. So they literally just make sure that it keeps running, whether or not they're making money through it or not.
So that firm is just okay playing that role of providing liquidity, and they don't want to
yeah, I mean, otherwise why wouldn't everyone else be making a boatload of money?
Okay, so there's different people that have different roles. One, this bank, you're providing liquidity, you're not supposed to be the one with outsized gains. This institution has the outside gains. This institution is underperforming, but then they get somehow money from another avenue, essentially, to sustain their operations.
That's like a really broad way to say it, but yeah, essentially.
Who are these firms?
It's big names that everyone knows. It's the people who are controlling the largest the banks. It's banks, it's hedge funds.
So blink if it's BlackRock.
What do I do?
So certain banks and financial institutions, who can't name for legal reasons, but we all pretty much know who they are, if they run the entire stock market and the financial news functions only as entertainment after the fact to provide cover or legitimacy for an alleged fraudulent, or shall we say at the very least a highly collaborative market, what could possibly go wrong here? So as long as the whole thing stays together, the glue, then it's all good.
As long as the wealthy continue to be wealthy, as long as workers are continuing to work, and as long as there is a system that enables all of this to thrive very well and succinctly, it'll keep going.
But isn't most of the money, though, from retirement funds and all of these, like the people's money?
Okay, so the people's money isn't just the people's money, it's the firm's money. And once that firm has access to that capital and also access to something called the Federal Reserve, they can borrow money from the Federal Reserve to flip the wealth that they do have from their clients to stimulate it back into the stock market and reward themselves long term. So again, that's why the stock market has been seen to be this inflationary tool, because it's constant stimulatory buying from the Federal Reserve.
What happens at the end when the debt is too much, or like, let's say China, whoever we owe a lot of money to says, all right, we're collecting. Yeah. What happens then?
So the only reason the United States can be in the debt that it is now, like our national debt, is because it is a military and financial powerhouse. The only reason that they can sustain that is because they say, hey, we are the controlling, governing body, at least like the head facilitator of capitalism right now. No one being a threat to that just works in their favor because they know that they can sustain it and make sure that it continues to happen. That's why people look at our national debt and it's like huge red flags, because it's like, at what point are we stopping going past trillions? Like, and it looks like it's happening fast, right?
Right.
So we look at that number and think this is so unsustainable, but the reality is, as long as people are contributing to our economic state and institutions trust the United States in continuing the economic state of the world, then sure, we will let it happen. There won't be havoc or this chaos of debts that are accumulating and unable to be paid because there is actual economic progress.
Is there any chance of reforming this, or we're just going to let this go until, like what you said, somebody rips the cord and says the workers are stopping working, or some other country is now challenging the US and it's at the same level militarily?
The SEC operating and looking at cryptography, they would need extreme amounts of evidence, and behind closed doors, as long as these people aren't talking and communicating with each other, it's not evidence. So they can use the exact same cryptography on paper that their firms figured out and say, hey, well, we just use this because it works. It's systematized, right? But no one told us the information. So that's why it works so well. Ultimately, if this network of people are doing it and consistently enough, which they are, in order to be ratted out for fraud, which is what it is, then yes, this would have serious extreme implications, which is why I'm sharing it in the first place.
Perhaps in this context, we can better understand that the ever-increasing US defense budget and the extensive network of military bases across dozens of countries around the world serve not just as a function of national security, but as weapons to enforce an economy propped up by deception and lies. But like all empires built on shaky foundations, the facade of prosperity cannot possibly last forever, and the house of cards will inevitably one day come crashing down. That's it for me this week. I know all this sounds maybe not surprising, but still pretty wild. So I encourage everyone to look into this for yourselves, see what other information is out there to support, maybe even detract from these claims. All I do know is that without a doubt, shady things are happening in the stock market every day. If you'd like me to produce more of these kinds of videos, please take a second to hit that like button, share this video with as many people as you can, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and also hit that notification bell so you know when my next video drops right away. As always, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.